If you are watching this podcast, I know that you have a dream and a desire to write and publish a book that's going to transform hearts and minds. Or perhaps you've written your book, but you are frustrated because you're not getting it sold or getting it into the hands and the hearts of the people who need that message that you have invested your time and your money in. In today's episode of Answering the Call to Write, I'm going to share one of the biggest, most pivotal things that you need to know as a kingdom driven author. I know it's going to be tremendously helpful in helping you get clear, confident, and connected with the people that you are called to serve. Welcome, awesome authors. You are listening to the Answering the Call to Write podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Farndale, and this episode is brought to you by Paper Crown Media. Hello, awesome authors, and welcome to this episode of Answering the Call to Write. My name is Melissa Farndale. I am an author of Christian nonfiction books as well as children's books. And my heart is to help other authors, especially kingdom-driven authors, to get those messages that God has put in their hearts out into the world and not just write and publish it, but get it into the hands of the people who need to read it. You have not spent all that time and money invested into your book for it just to sit on a shelf. You wanted to make a difference in this world. And in order to do that, you will need to know who you are, what you are here to do, what you carry from the kingdom, and who you are called to serve. I have recently shared some of these insights with my Facebook group, which is free to join. The link is in the show notes, so do come and find us there. We would love to get to know you and help you write your message and share it with the world. So I hope that you enjoy this segment and that it will give you some practical tools to help you move forward with writing, publishing, and promoting the book that you were born to write. Because I think it's such an important piece for everyone who is hoping to write, publish, and connect with the people that they are called to serve. I've talked a lot, and I've made a post, I think it was earlier this week or late last week, excuse me, about discovering your core message. What is the core message for your book? Now, I just want to clarify a few things. You will have a very unique identity as an author. There are many books on the same topics, but every single voice is unique. And your voice will resonate with a specific audience. You're not going to be for everyone, which is why you need to know who you are. You need to know who you are for, and you need to know what you're about. And I love how Jesus demonstrates this when he shows up in Luke 4:18. It's the very first time he's preaching in the synagogue as an adult. And the very first sermon he gives, he quotes from the book of Isaiah 61, and he says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor." He mentioned binding up the brokenhearted. He mentioned releasing prisoners from darkness. The bit he left out from Isaiah 61 was the day of the Lord's vengeance, because that was not what he was about. He was about restoring our relationship with the Father. He came to model what that relationship should be like. The same relationship that Jesus had with the Father is now the relationship that we are able to have with the Father, and there is no vengeance in that message. So Jesus knew what his good news was. He knew who his poor was, who he came to bring that good news to, and he also knew what his message was about. And that was his general mission, right? I love the bit in in Matthew. I think it's in Matthew 8 or Matthew 5, but Jesus says he's the light of the world, and the Pharisees are not happy with it. And they are like, "How dare you say this about yourself?" And I love the way that Jesus responds to them, because he says, Just because I'm saying I'm the light of the world doesn't mean that it's any less true, because I know exactly who I am, where I come from, and where I am going. And Jesus said also that you are the light of the world. And I believe that God wants us to know who we are, where we've come from, and where we are going. And I think as an author and a writer, it is pivotal that you are able to say who you are, where you're from, and where you are going. That you are able to show up like Jesus did, in confidence, saying, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for He's anointed me to bring good news to the poor. But you need to know exactly what your good news is, what is unique about it, and who is it for? Who is your poor? If you're trying to write to everyone, then you're not going to reach anyone. If you're trying to solve all the problems for all the people, you're not going to solve any problems for nobody. It is really, really important that you take the time before you even start writing your book to really figure out what it is that you are called to do with this book that you are writing. Because when the going gets tough, and it will, you will need to be reminded. You will need to be reminded why you are showing up in this space to begin with. So I want to share with you some of the things you can do to figure all of that out. So there's an identity piece. There's understanding who you are and why you are here and who you are for and what you are carrying in the kingdom. And then there's also your book. You may have more than one book, right? So again, not every book is going to solve every problem for all the people. One book, one problem, one audience. That is what you need to understand. So you need to know what the core message is for that particular book. The one thing about our stories as kingdom authors, as Christians, as people who have encountered God and we have a testimony, I hear so many incredible stories of people and they are all amazing, but people will pick up a book either because they want to be entertained or they need to solve a problem. And if your book is about entertainment, if it's all about the story, if it's just about the story, then that's great. But if you are here to solve a problem for people, to make a difference in the world, to bring the light of Jesus, to bring kingdom, then that's a different kind of book. And many authors mix those two things up. And you've got to be very clear with how you tell your story so that it is actually going to make a difference for people. So how do I actually discover my identity? And then I just want to talk about the core message as well. So here's some of the things that you can ask to uncover your identity. You can grab a notepad, grab a pen, sit with your journal, and ask the Holy Spirit to help you just sit with these questions and unpack these questions. But just think about, what are the things that you are really truly passionate about in this world? What change would you like to see in the world? What stirs up righteous anger in you? What are the kind of problems that you are naturally solving for people? When they are coming to you with their problems, what are the kind of things that you normally help people with? Do you have any specific prophetic words that were spoken over your life? Has God given you very specific visions for your life or words for your life? What are the problems that you have overcome in your own life? Because oftentimes it is the things that we have battled with, the giants that we have slayed, that we are called to help other people slay. So what are those giants? What were the things that we've overcome in our own life? And now, what you want to do for your book is you want to think about, what is the problem, the one problem that I want to focus on in this particular book? What is the one thing that I can share with someone that's going to make a huge difference in their life, that's going to unlock them from that prison of darkness. It's going to bind up their wounds. I hope that these questions are helpful. So anyway, I wanted to give you an example. So I asked for people to share their stories and share their core message for their book. Now, when you are writing a core message, it is wonderful if you are able to actually put that into one sentence. Like, what is this book about? And it's interesting when you ask people to tell you, what is your book about? They will tell you their story. But here is the kicker. Your book is about you, but it's not for you. Okay? Your book is for someone else. And if nobody walks around or wakes up in the morning thinking, I need a story. They wake up in the morning saying, I need help with this particular problem. So when I ask people to tell me, like, what is the core message of their book, they usually start with the story. I have overcome this. I have done these wonderful things, and God has helped me to do all of this wonderful things. But it's all about their story. So when you take that and you whittle it down to one sentence, even then you need to be able to write that sentence in a way that is going to actually communicate to the reader what that book is going to do for them. So instead of, in this book, you're going to read about how I have overcome God in this very dark season of my life, how I've slain my giant, how I've, by the power of His grace, how I've restored my finances and my home life, and how I have become successful. You could say something like, in this book, you are going to discover how to encounter God in your darkest season, how to overcome adversity in your life, in your family, how to discover your purpose, how to step into the plans and the assignments that God has for your life. So it doesn't become about your story as much as it becomes about the reader. And that's where we are going with the core message, is what is your book going to do for the reader? I hope that is bringing a bit of clarity around the core message. It's so, so important that we know what this one book is going to be about. You're going to write more books, so don't feel like you're limited by focusing on one particular message. I'd like to know what you think about that. If you disagree with me, that's fine. Feel free to comment, feel free to share. If you want a bit of feedback, drop your core message in the comments below, and I'll see if I can get some time to spend and have a look at it and give you some specific feedback. Once you've got your core message, then you start working from that place. Then you start looking at the reader's journey, you start mapping that out. And then once you've mapped that out, that's when you're going to sit down and create a blueprint for your chapter and start writing your chapters one by one. A lot of authors make the mistake of just opening their laptop and they just start to write. And I hear that a lot. People will say, just write, just start already. And yes, it is useful. Every time you sit down to write, it's a useful exercise. It's going to help you get to a place of clarity. So I'm not booing that idea. I'm just saying that if you want to write a book that's going to be clear, that's going to connect with the right reader, you want to do the work before you start. Now, if you're not in the Paper Crown Media subscription, I highly recommend doing that, signing up for it. In the training library, I have a 7-step process that I teach to help you get the clarity for your, not just your identity as an author, but also mapping out the reader's journey, clarifying that core message, creating that whole framework even before you start writing your book. Do the work, create the framework, excuse me, and then start writing your book, then start building your book. It's going to save you a lot of time, money, frustration, and pain, because it's hard to get that book written and get to the finishing line without losing yourself in the weeds of it all. So it also helps massively with your marketing. So doing that identity piece, for those of you who have written books and you want to market your book effectively, again, I highly recommend sitting down and going through those questions so that you know who you are, and when you show up to do your marketing, you're showing up with purpose and authority. You know what you're doing, you know what you're for, who you're for, and what you are carrying. That is so important. So yeah, okay, I'll stop. I'll get off my soapbox and I'll go and have a nice day, and I hope you're going to have a nice day too. Thank you so much for watching with us today. In the show notes, you will find a link to join our Facebook group. It is completely free. We also have a paid subscription that contains a library of training that gives you a step-by-step process of exploring your identity as an author and writer. It will help you craft your core message, discover exactly what it is that you carry and what you need to write about. It will also give you the tools you need to finish that manuscript, to publish it, and to promote your book. Also check the link for a free resource that is going to help you take the first few steps in writing a book that's going to be clear, that's going to connect with your ideal reader, and that's going to help you show up in the space confidently. I am so grateful that you are here and that you are taking action in making that dream that God has put in your heart a reality. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope to see you again next week, same time, same place. Bye.